time is 5:12 p.m. We are back on the road.
Where did you get that information?
That information came from Bill Alpert at Barron's magazine.
Do you know where he got it?
No.
And Unit 1810 was acquired on November 30th for $829. Did that come from Bill Alpert also?
I believe so.
How did Bill Albert become interested in Dennis Ketsev?
He's a part of the OCCRP network.
Well, but how did Dennis Ketsev come to the attention of the OCCRP?
I don't know.
Well, how'd they come to your attention?
I don't know.
Do you know whether this information is accurate in 17 and 18?
I don't know.
Look, this is a letter that you delivered to the New York DA personally, and you did no due diligence to see whether it was accurate?
I trusted my team.
That's totally, you trusted your team, but you did nothing yourself to understand the information and to check whether it was accurate. Is that true?
What's the question?
You did nothing yourself in the way of due diligence to determine whether this information that you're presenting to the New York DA is accurate.
My team did the due diligence and I trusted their work.
And nobody has been prosecuted, although you've been at this for years, other than Mr. Ketsev, based on the rigor and quality of your information. Is that right?
No.
Who's been prosecuted?
You had 5 different questions in your questions, so...
No, nobody has been prosecuted based upon the rigor and quality of the work of your team. 5 years of doing work?
Is your question whether anyone has been prosecuted?
Yes.
If your question is, has anyone been prosecuted?
As a result of your work?
As a result of our work, not yet.
And it's been how many years you've been at this?
Since Sergei Magnitsky was killed.
And when was that?
November 16th, 2009.
So that's 6 years now.
5.5.
And you presented to how many different prosecutors?
To the extent that that question calls for communications with government agencies that are engaged in ongoing criminal investigations that aren't public, I'm going to again request that the witness not answer it, but obviously to the extent that it's about the existence of investigations that are public, we have no objection.
You're instructing him not to answer? To be clear, I asked for the number.
Yes.
I didn't ask for names. So I don't know how the number could be privileged.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's just to the number, then you can answer.
Yes, Mr. Simrod, I understood you to be asking for the number, and if the witness knows the number, I do not have an independent objection other than what the government stated, which I understand they're withdrawing their objection to a question about the number if the witness knows.
How many prosecutors have you submitted information to?
I don't know the exact number, more than 10.
And when your rigorous and high-quality information has been challenged in court, you've lost. Isn't that true?
No.
Well, Mr. Stepanov won in court. You already testified to that. And weren't you sued by Mr. Karpov
Yeah.
in London?
Yes.
And the judge there was highly critical of your analysis, wasn't he?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't have want a judge saying this about me, so I'll show it to you. So it says that your case is, for the avoidance of doubt, it's not alleged that the claimant, which would be Mr. Karpov, personally took part in the ill treatment and or torture or killing of Mr. Magnitsky. The case against claimant is that he was, however, one of those culpable and or complicit in it because of his part in the fraud and cover-up. And then it says it would have been reasonably foreseeable to any reasonable or blameless official in claimant's position, not least based on the high mortality rates in Russian prison, that a person in Mr. Magnitsky's position could well die in prison. Notwithstanding this, the claimant participated in his arrest and detention in the manner alleged above. Correct?
Yes.
And then the judge says, this is an unsatisfactory plea of justification for at least two reasons. First, it focuses on claimant's motive, and motive alone is not sufficient to support a plea of torture and murder. Second, the only overt act relied on is the claimant's involvement in the arrest and imprisonment of Sergei Magnitsky. The link which is made between the arrest and imprisonment on the one hand and Sergei Magnitsky's death on the other is that the latter was reasonably foreseeable consequence of the former, not least because of high mortality rates in Russian prison. The causal link which one would expect from such a serious charge is wholly lacking, and nothing is said about torture or murder. That's what the judge said about your statements concerning Mr. Karpov, correct?
Yes.
And yet, you continue to go around and associate people with the death of Sergei Magnitsky who were not directly involved in his death, don't you?
I believe that people I make statements about being involved in his death were involved in his death.
And you think Mr. Karpov, despite the disagreement that the judge had with you, you think Mr. Karpov is responsible.
I believe that Mr. Karpov was a member of a criminal enterprise that was responsible.
I'm asking you whether you disagree with the judge, that because he arrested him, then necessarily Mr. Magnitsky was going to die. And that's what you've said.
Why don't we just read a little further in the same document? If you go to...
Why don't we answer my question? The causal link which one would expect from a serious charge is wholly lacking, and nothing is said about torture or murder. He doesn't agree that because he supposedly was the arresting officer, that he was responsible for his death, correct?
No.
The judge doesn't agree.
No, that's incorrect.
Oh, the judge agrees with you?
No, the judge doesn't. Let's repeat your question and I'll tell you
I'd
what
say
you're
the
doing.
judge thinks that the causal link which one would expect from such a serious charge, and the charge being that he was involved in the arrest, and therefore he was involved in the death, is wholly lacking, and nothing is said is about torture or murder. That's what the judge said. You disagree with the judge?
No.
Okay.
In paragraph 141, Justice Simon says, I've used the expression presently...
Well, why don't you start at the beginning of the paragraph if you want to talk about 141.
Sure. Thirdly, the claimant has achieved a measure of vindication as a result of the views I have expressed in this application. Defendants are not in a position to justify the allegations that he caused or was party to the torture, death of Sergei Magnitsky, or will continue to commit...
Slow down and speak out loud.
Or to be party to...
If you want to read this, make sure people can hear it.
Would you like me to start from the
I
beginning?
would like you to start at the beginning, slow down, and speak out loud.
Thirdly, the claimant has achieved a measure of vindication as a result of the views I have expressed on his application. The defendants are not in a position to justify the allegations that he caused or was party to the torture and death of Sergei Magnitsky, or would continue to commit or be party to covering up crimes. To use the expression in Olswang's letter of the 1st of August 2012, the record, at least insofar as it is presently set out in the pleadings, has been set straight. I recognize that this will not prevent a repetition of the libel, which, in order of the court, would do, at least in this jurisdiction. However, nothing in this judgment is intended to suggest that if the defendants were to continue to publish unjustified defamatory material about the claimant, the court would be powerless to act. I have used the expression presently set out in the pleadings because I have not overlooked the possibility of an application to amend the particulars of the plea of justification to rely on participation in a broad conspiracy and/or joint enterprise.
And you feel that justifies associating Mr. Karpov, with the death of Mr. Magnitsky, what you just read.
I believe that Mr. Karpov was a member of a joint enterprise or a broad conspiracy that led to the murder and death of Sergei Magnitsky.
And you have yet to come up with a single fact that would justify that.
No, incorrect.
We're not going back over the pleadings.